Alright guys, today what we're going to look at is the Articles of Confederation. This is called the Matrix for analyzing features of the Articles of Confederation. What we're going to do is we're going to look at bits and pieces about what the actual Articles of Confederation were. This is going to be our first style of government following the American Revolution. So we're going to kind of look at some of the strengths here at the end. And then tomorrow we're going to kind of talk about some of the weaknesses and why we no longer have it. As we go through here, as always, write the underlined parts. There's a couple of slides on here that do not have spots to be written down in. So you need to make sure you copy that information either at the top of the page or at the bottom of the page. But either way, it's going to need to be on there. And I'm going to need to check it off that you did it. So make sure you bring it to me once we are finished, okay? So here we go. The Articles of Confederation, a little bit of background knowledge. This was our first attempt at government inside the United States, creating a formal government. This means an official way of ruling the United States. We just won the war. This kind of goes with the activity that we were looking at earlier, where the war is over with, now what? So this was their attempt. It was made during the Second Continental Congress. The Second Continental Congress is also the place where we wrote the Declaration of Independence. It only had one branch of government. There was no president, no king, no nothing in charge that way, no true judicial branch. It was just a Congress that basically had one vote per state. So there was 13 states, so no tie. And each one of these branches of government, this one branch of government made all the decisions the best they could. It was called a League of Friendship, in which each state was free and independent. We work together. It's like your friends. You try to work with each other, but we'll see what happens. We're not going to guarantee it's going to happen. The problem with that is what happens when you work with your friends? Exactly. Sometimes y'all have issues. Same thing was going to happen with the United States. So what we're going to see here is this is no chief executive. So you see you have that open box, and you have to fill in the information for what's missing. In this case, why this was included in the AOC. It's going to flip-flop in each direction which one is missing, so you're going to have to write down that information. So first off, there was no chief executive. There was no president, no king, no dictator, no nothing in charge of the government. They did not want to have another powerful leader or executive like King George III, so that's why they left it out. The problem with that, a lack of leadership from the central, federal, or national government. Guys, for the first few slides, you're going to see central, federal, or national, and it's because those three words are synonyms. We have to be able to recognize all three terms when it comes to our STAR test. There was no single leader for the government. So think about no President Obama. Who's going to be driving the government in the United States? That's the same issue that we're having here. Second thing is laws needed approval by 9 of 13 states. Okay, so 9 out of 13 people have to agree, so majority rules. But think about how hard it is to get your friends to agree on much. All right, they wanted to, why it was included, they wanted to protect individual states' power without the power going to the federal government. They wanted the states to be powerful because they feared a strong central, federal, or national government. Possible problems with that was be difficult to get people to agree. Everybody has their own idea. How does it benefit me? So they were unable to do a whole lot with that. So first problem, first issue was no executive by design. Now you needed 9 out of 13 states to agree. The third thing was Congress did not have the power to tax citizens, raise money. It could only request money from states. The reason they did this was because there was a fear of being unfairly taxed by the central, federal, or national government as they had been under British rule. Think about the Stamp Act, Townshend Acts, those types of things. We wanted to eliminate that from happening again. Problem with that was that states often had to choose not to pay taxes. Because who wants to collect money? And why are we going to contribute to the debt when it doesn't help me out as an individual? So because of that, they didn't have the funds to operate effectively. So there was a lot of issues with that. War debt was, let's pretend it was in the millions and billions of dollars, and they had no money to pay for it. Eventually, people want their money back that they invested, and that's going to be an issue. Next problem, the next thing, D, Congress didn't have the power to draft an army. It could only request states to send men for military service. Okay, why this was included? They didn't want to have a large standing army that might take away citizens' rights. Problem is, left the country vulnerable without a dependable military force. And we're going to talk about that more tomorrow when we talk about Shays' Rebellion. Okay, but it left the country vulnerable not to have anybody backing it up. Next one, no national court system. So no Supreme Court. There's fear the central government with a court system might that might be unfair to the rights of the states. So there was a problem. The states had to find a way to work it out. It usually didn't end up well. Today they can go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will make a decision for them. But during this time, disputes between states could not be fairly settled. And so this was becoming a big issue. The states kept fighting. So that League of Friendships keeps slipping away. We're separating a little bit because we had issues with each other. Next one, any amendments or changes to the articles must be approved by all 13 states. So let's go back to pretending we're hanging out with our friends. Is it easy to get your friends to agree on much? Usually not. On top of that, now you have to get all of your friends to agree on something to be able to do it. Okay, this was going to be a problem. They wanted to make sure that the states had a strong say in shaping the government. They wanted everybody to kind of work together and be in agreement that this was the best decision. But it's nearly impossible to make changes to the articles. Any one state could say, no. And when they said no, it would stop the amendment that 12 other states would have liked. Okay, so that's going to be a big issue here. Next one, Congress did not have the power to collect state debts owed to the federal government. So Congress sometimes would let people borrow money and they wouldn't get paid back. So what you have is a fear of a strong central government that could force states to pay for things they didn't want. So if I don't want to pay in this tax because I have nothing to do with it, all of a sudden I'm being forced into it whether I like it or not. Possible problem with this is the federal government often didn't have the funds necessary to operate effectively. We talked about that before. You have no money, your country falls apart. Think about the government shutdown that we just kind of went through inside the United States. Next one. Congress did not have the power to settle disputes among states. Basically, that's where the judicial system sets in today, but they wanted the state to have ultimate authority in resolving disputes. They wanted each state to work with each other, to be friends. This would, when they don't get resolved, we start breaking up some more. And that was the final of the matrix. This goes back to writing either at the top or bottom of your paper. The last thing is the strengths of the Articles of Confederation. Does it sound like we have a lot of strengths? From looking at that stuff, no, we had some issues with it. But these were the strengths. I need you to make sure we copy these down. The strengths of the AOC is that the states' rights are more important than national rights. They were all about the state rights. Each state has equal say. No state is more important. So everybody's equal. Everybody's rights are protected. Congress can only do these things, which really and truly is very little. They can make war and peace. We can declare war, but they couldn't draft an army to fight the war. They could sign treaties. Hopefully, we don't have that issue. They could raise an army and navy, but when they raise it, they say, "Hey, state Virginia, can you send 1,000 troops? South Carolina, can you send 1,000?" Try to recruit an army that way. They could print money, but each state also had their own money because they were their own country, kind of, sort of, as well. And they could set up a postal system. All right, so this is going to be your notes for the Articles of Confederation. This is going to be primarily this is going to be the only stuff we talk about with it. So don't stress too much over it. So make sure you get everything copied down. Once you do, go ahead and bring me your note sheet so I can check off that you have everything written down that you need to. Thank you. Have a good day.